We are live.
Says it is on mine.
It is? Okay, cool. All right, well, here we are. American Bait Works Live. We haven't been on very much lately. It's been summertime, and guess what? We haven't been on because everybody's been fishing. Good times. But so today's guest, we are going to have Jeremy Lawyer, Freedom Pro, going. This is one of the biggest events of the year. It's the Major League Fishing, the Tackle Warehouse title event. This is the championship event. This is the event that these guys have been working all year long. You know, they've fished all the different tournaments. You guys have been at Smith Lake. You guys have been at the St. Lawrence River. You guys have been all over the place, and you qualified for the title event.
Yep.
How is it, for one, I know you've made it several times before, but it's kind of what what you're going for, what all the anglers are going for throughout the year, is to have enough consistent good finishes to be able to make this thing. So how does it, you got to tell me first, before we get talking about fishing or anything, just tell me, like, emotionally, like how does it feel? Because all year you're striving trying to do that, and then you finally make it. Jeremy, what's it feel like?
I tell you what, it feels better, I think, for my wife than it does for me. All year long, all the struggles we put up with and sacrifices, it came to this event right here, and we're here at the Mississippi River. So that probably means more to me than personally to me, is just that my family put up with so much for me to make it to this point. Right.
No, I get it. Definitely. And that's one thing, like, it's cool that you mention about the families, because, everything that your family goes through all the time, just you being gone so much. And it's not just the events on the Major League Fishing circuit, but it's all the other stuff, the sponsor obligations, things like that. Everybody has to have that's competing at your level. Everybody has to have, sponsors to help, because all this travel and stuff, it gets so expensive. But you have obligations for them, and just, going pre-fishing and all the work that it takes to keep your tackle in tip-top shape. It's just, there's an immense amount of what I call duties that a professional bass angler has. But so these championship events, like we said, it's the culmination of your entire year. And it finally works out, and you reach that goal. And once you're there, some of the stuff that is going through your mind, like, first off, like the huge prize money, but not only the prize money, just the recognition of being what was formerly known as the Forest Wood Cup. Now it's called the title event, but just, to get that title of the title event champion is amazing. So this year, it's on the Mississippi River, the upper Mississippi River. You guys are going out of La Crosse. What kind
it's nothing like the St. Lawrence River where we just came.
Right. There are smallmouth in it, but it's completely different fishing. So, but tell me a little bit about your background with the upper Mississippi River. Have you been up there several times?
I have, ever since my rookie year, it seems like I fished several events up here. I've got a lot of friends from this area that just happen to move around the Midwest and things. So over the years, I've jockeyed up here and fished quite a bit. And then when I got on the actual tour of the FLW tour and then became MLF, it just seemed like every year we were coming here. But it's a fishery that's very diverse. There's 3 pools. You got a lock, or possibly if you choose to.
Yep.
And then, you've got, both smallmouth and largemouth. And it's just a really fun place to fish. I really feel comfortable up here. And then the best part, it looks like you can kill a giant deer anywhere around this.
It does.
I'm really comfortable up here. I like fishing up here in this part of the country. It's a really nice part of the country.
No, it is. So fill me in a little bit. I've actually been out in Oklahoma with MLF commentating the Champlain Bass Pro Tour event. I just got home yesterday, so I really haven't had a lot of time to catch up yet with what you guys are doing up there. And I'm going to be out there all 6 days that you guys are competing, commentating this event too. So you guys tune into Major League Fishing now, MLF now. Just go to majorleaguefishing.com and hit the live button and go, and we'll be on there. Chad McKee, Marty Stone, and I will be on there calling all the action all 6 days. But have you started practice yet, or is tomorrow the first day? How's the format looking?
Well, I mean, I tell you what, we don't start practice till Saturday morning. That's our first
Okay.
Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
But I knew going into St. Lawrence, I just had to catch a bass, and I was going to make the championship. So when I went to St. Lawrence to pre-practice, I swung back by here and spent a couple of days here on the river, a day and 8 and a day and 9, and to just kind of seeing what the river was like. We hadn't been here since last July, and it was really low. It was grown up. I've never been here this late in the year, and it was as grown up as I've ever seen it. There's places that I caught fish in July that I could walk to rather than actually get a boat to. So it was really different. And then I've paid attention every day, watched the river levels, that kind of deal. And they've got like 8-9 inches of rain in the last 2 or 3 days. It really brought a lot of the pools up, and it kind of happened on up river. So all that's going to trickle down.
So you're getting the benefit of all that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when I drove over the bridge today and actually saw the river, it was pretty brown in places right there. And so I think you'll see some settling out, but it's definitely, different than what it's been in the past. It was different from pre-practice, and that's probably my favorite part about the river is that it's never the same. You can't just come back to the same place and catch them. But if I would have found a big old load of them in pre-practice, I'd be mad right now because I was off. But
I get it. Well, so one thing by you saying that, what immediately starts going through my head is if it was low and a lot of the vegetation was really grown up, and now you've got an increase in the water levels, that may run some of those fish back into some of the, some of those really thick areas that you may not have been able to get to, either because the vegetation was just too thick and the water was too low. Now it may open some of that stuff up. That vegetation will be all crammed up, and it may open some of it up now to where you could get through it. So that that in itself may really, open up some new areas and change some stuff around, whereas I guess what I'm saying is if some guys went up there and really, really spent a lot of time pre-fishing thinking, it's summertime, summer patterns, everything's going to stay the same, that could be a big wrench in the works.
Now, I think you're going to see somebody really bust a group of fish open that have not been there in weeks. They just had the opportunity to get there now, and you've seen them filter into an area. And they're probably going to be those fish that are green and nobody's pastured, and it's going to make for a good event for somebody. I hope I'm that guy that lands on them, but somebody,
we all are.
That situation, there's no doubt about it.
So another thing that might be interesting too. So the really cool thing, in my opinion, about those is it's pools 7, 8, and 9, if I'm not mistaken. What's really interesting to me about those pools on the Mississippi River is that you literally can win on largemouth or smallmouth. Now, it's typically won more often on largemouth, but there's a really good population of smallmouth up there. And how you have piqued my curiosity by saying that the water levels are coming up, they got a lot of rain up above, because if that creates a lot of current out there, on that main river, there definitely could be some places, because I've fished up there a few times and found some fish out in those current seams and stuff. So that might be something that plays now in the event that if they would not have got that rain, may not have played.
Yeah, and I think you'll see a mixed bag anyway. I've never been here and not had a mixed bag in the tournament. I've never just weighed in all largemouth or all smallmouth. It seems like it's crazy how you catch a smallmouth with the largemouth or vice versa. So I think you'll still see that. I think you'll see a mixed bag play bigger than what it has in the past, because I think this current's going to rejuvenate the smallmouth a little bit.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think too. So I got to ask you, of course, what do you think the frog bite's going to be like? I mean, I know that there's been some national tournaments, one up there on a frog. I know with the water levels previously, when people were up there pre-fishing stuff, were really low. But now that they've come up a little bit, I mean, is this going to open up the door to just have a massive, frog fest up there?
Absolutely. When I was here before, a lot of the stuff was so thick, you couldn't even hardly throw a frog over it because there was it was too thick. A lot of the cheese mats was way too thick. The duckweed kind of got pushed into places and was just kind of drowned out by the eelgrass. Right now, that's going to lift all that up. It's going to float down through there, make some nice places with duckweed. It absolutely could turn into a frog just absolutely dynamite tournament for a frog. You know, no doubt I've got different ones tied on. You know, I can't really say it's going to take one frog or the other, but I've got a launch frog and a Bobby's Perfect frog because they weigh different. And you're going to come into situations where either one of those, right there, either one of them can absolutely play big. And so I really believe that it could definitely be one on a frog, no doubt about it, you know. But I think what will happen is it still is going to revolve around that new group of fish that has not been in that area. Right.
Well, I mean, I just think like this is everybody that's watched these American Bait Works live. They know who this guy is. This is the launch frog, and this is in the sloppy toad. This is my favorite color. I started throwing it down here in Florida a lot, and I was convinced that the bottom of it, they thought it was a tilapia. Well, since then, I've taken it to some other places in the country, and guess what? They still like this color really good.
They don't have tilapia there.
Right. So they apparently they must think it's a bullfrog or a toad or whatever they think it is. I think bass are opportunistic and just feed on whatever it is. But this frog has become absolutely my favorite. I have a hard time. Like, yes, the Bobby's Perfect frog from Snag Proof, it's awesome. It is. There's no doubt about it. But when you have your favorite, like this is my favorite. This is the launch frog. We call it the launch frog because it has a tungsten weight system on the hook. It's called a parasite weight system. You can kind of see it right there. And it's called the launch frog because you can throw it so far. And it actually makes, and this is my opinion. So far, I'm allowed to have my own opinion. And in my opinion, it makes me a better frog fisherman because I can cast it further and I'm more accurate. Like this frog, since it has a little bit of weight to it, it's still super soft, like all scum frogs. It's super soft, right? Like the hookup ratio is amazing. But I'm more accurate with it because like especially if there's any wind at all, the real light hollow body frog, the wind catches it or it just, there's not even any wind. It just catches air on its own and shoots off this way or shoots off that way. Like this one, I can skip it under bushes. I can skip it under docks. I can skip it way further. And just the general casting, I mean, the scum frog, launch frog, like it's absolutely my favorite one. And I know the whole time you guys are going to be up there next week and I'm going to be sitting at that desk commentating. I'm going to be like, oh God, oh, I want to throw a frog. Oh, I want to go throw a frog so bad. I'm going to have to watch you guys do it for 6 days. I'm going to have launch frog-itis.
One more thing to throw to that too is this is the championship. You're not fishing for points. You're not fishing for any kind of conservative type spot. You're trying to win. And that frog is going to be a player as far as winning. It gets you a big bite. It gets you numbers on the river. But, I mean, the frog is really going to play in this one, And that's the best part about the championship is you don't have to fish conservatively at all. You've done that all year.
Right.
Now you can just swing away. But what will absolutely break your heart in frog fishing on this river is you may see 15, 16 pounds, and they may jump over it and do everything else, and you may just come in with 3. And that's just frog fishing. But at least in this tournament, if you put that in your hand and something just goes wrong and you just don't hook them all or they don't get it, you just not lost your whole season. So that's probably the favorite part of mine about the championship. You can just let her go.
Nice. Well, let's look at a couple of questions. I know we've got some questions over there, and maybe we'll take a look at one or two and see what we got going on. There's actually been quite a few questions. I was kind of not looking at the question side of it there for a while, but there's a bunch of them popping up here. Brian says, JT, why did MLF move you guys from the event site to the studio out west? Honestly, there's a lot of different reasons. One of the things was that it was obviously more cost effective, and we could do a lot more stuff. As we like to say at the studio, we have a lot more toys at the studio, so we can do a lot more cool things, weather and a lot of times we really like to break down the lures that the guys are using to try to teach people how it's going. And at the studio, we have a big giant chest closet thing. And when somebody starts catching some fish on a certain lure, a lot of times we'll have that bait in the studio and we can just go over to that closet. We can pull it out and we put it up on a little stand and, have the camera guy go all around it, and we can really talk about it instead of just being like, yeah, Jeremy's leading today on a scum frog. You know, like at the studio, we actually have it, and we can go get it, put it on the little stand, really show the guys. You know, there's a lot of different stuff. My personal opinion on between the studio and being on site, there's pros and cons. There really is. Like I liked being on site, but there's, like I said, I think we're putting on a better, higher quality show for the audience at home by being in the studio. So, yeah, if there's, you know, a few hundred people or whatever on site, it is cool to have us up there doing it on site. You know, it's kind of like Big Ten football, you know, kind of look with the stage and everything. But we're doing a way better product for the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that are watching online and on TV.
Yeah, they want to learn anyway. So if you've got a better learning tool, use it.
Yeah, it really is. So let's hit a couple more questions. What do we got here? There's a few. Casey says, help me on Chickamauga in the winter, please. Well, apparently I got a lot of buddies that live there, and apparently all you do is go throw an Alabama rig on any deep place that is in the whole lake, and you're going to catch a giant bass. I'm sure it's not that easy, Casey, but that's certainly the way it sounds. So I don't know. What do you Gene says, what modifications do you do to your frogs prior to fishing them? Jeremy, what do you do?
I tell you what, I carry some solder wire with me that's lead wire, and I can wrap it around the shank of the hook, pull the frog body up just a little ways, and then wrap it around the shank of the hook. If I want to put a louder rattle or add 2 rattles to it, then I'll carry the same thing. I carry some shrink tubing to where I can slide it over the hook. You can actually take a piece of braid line, pull the frog body off the hook, cut it, put your there you go right there. Put your rattle on there. Put your
kind of like that shrink tubing.
Yep, and then just heat it all back, and it stays perfectly in place wherever you'd like to put it. Now, Scum Frog does that on their stuff to keep the weight there and everything.
Well, that's what I was going to say. This comes like this. This is the inside of a launch frog, and it comes already rigged like that.
But now that's a weight, not a rattle, correct?
Yes, this is a tungsten weight system in there.
Yeah, so you could
but that's what I just.
Yeah, you could add a rattle to that as well.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, you could. It's probably a rattle is probably one of the only things that I personally sometimes will do with the launch frog, or well, really with any frog. But the launch frog itself, I mean, the launch frog, I throw it right out of the package. I don't even trim the legs on it or anything. Like so many times you see people where they'll trim if they want to make a smaller profile, but so many times they'll trim them different. So one will be longer than the other, and it makes the frog walk back and forth a lot easier. You know, when you're doing the kind of the walk the dog back and forth like this. The Scum Frog launch frog, you don't even have to do that. This thing works. This walks back and forth to me perfectly fine without even trimming the legs. But some of the other frogs, I will trim the legs on, and I'll trim the legs on this too if I want a smaller profile. You know what I mean? I'll trim them down maybe like that. But I like big bass, so I like a big profile.
Well, you're in Florida where there is big bass. I'm going to trim mine up a little bit here on the Mississippi River because, the main thing we're going to target is like 3-pounders, 3.5
Right,
pounders.
correct. There might be a 4.5 or 5 pounder caught.
Exactly.
But in general, you're trying to catch as many 3 1/4s as you can, and if you get on that school, the 4 pounder, the 4 1/4 is going to come.
Yep, exactly. So you're on that mystery lake down there in Florida where nobody gets to fish except for you, and they're giant 10-pounders swimming around.
Not anymore. It's open. August 10th of last year, Headwaters.
You guys publicized it too much.
I do. I catch a little crap every once in a while about maybe publicizing Headwaters too much, but it's a giant lake. It's so much fun. It's a great place to test it. That's where a lot of American Baitworks stuff gets tested, is down there, and it's a great place to be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's take another one from Adam. If you could catch the world record bass or win the highest championship of the tour of your choice, which would you choose? Jeremy, what would you do?
Tour championship, hands down. The world one bite is not near as accomplishment, I think, as winning a tour championship that's multi-day.
Oh, I completely agree that first off, a tour championship, you say, is a multi-day event, so it's harder to put a few days together to win.
Yeah.
You had to put a whole season together just to make the championship, and then to win the championship. That's like but it's not an insurmountable feat because somebody's going to do it every year, but like it's a feat in itself to be able to do that. As far as the world record bass, I'd actually would think about it, because here comes the business side. I mean, I feel like I could monetarily turn that into some good things. I don't know, maybe so. But who knows if you caught it on the right bait, but that's just like to me that's really far out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, guaranteed it if you win the championship, because it's going to come with monetary right out of the gate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So there you go, Adam. That's our end of it. I'd love to see the world record bass, though. I mean, just up close, because I've bore witness to. I didn't catch it, but I held a 14-pounder one time, and a 14 is so much bigger than a 10-pounder.
I couldn't imagine.
So and here's the difference too. We were just talking about Florida. So a lot of people come to Florida and they're like, yeah, I caught a 10-pounder, or they catch one and they're like, oh man, that's a 10-pounder. And I look at it and go, oh, it's a giant, but it's a 7.5. And they're like, no way, can't, it's a 10, it's a 10. Get the scales out. 7 pounds, 10 ounces. So I think a lot of people don't realize how big a 10-pounder is. When you catch a 10-pounder, you think it's a 14.
Absolutely.
So that's my whole point of saying, I'm lucky enough to live here in Florida. I've caught a few 10-pounders, not as many as most people think, but I've caught a few. When I got to hold that 14-pounder, having held, a dozen 10-pounders before, I was like, holy, you know what? Wow, it's that much bigger than a 10-pounder. I can't imagine what a 25-pounder.
Oh, no.
No. I don't even know what to say. It would be absolutely phenomenal just to see something that big. And some of the pictures that I've seen of really big ones, not 25-pounders, but those 18s and 19s, it almost reminds me of St. Lawrence River smallmouth, where they don't get any, they only get so long. They start going like this.
Yeah. They get
what I mean? And when they get like that 18, 19 pounds, once again, pictures, because I've never seen one that big, but they almost start to look like a brim or a bluegill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they're as tall this way as they are, long that way. Like crazy. Get me started on big bass. Here we go. Let's hit another question or two, and then we'll talk to Jeremy a little bit more about it. Mark says, seems like the best time to catch bass in this heat is at night here in Kentucky. Do you have any tips to share about night fishing? Well, Mark, believe it or not, I used to actually do a lot of night fishing. So I live in Florida now. I grew up in Maryland, actually. And I lived on a little lake called, not on it. We live close to it, but not on it. A lake called Deep Creek Lake. And it's about halfway in between the Pittsburgh metropolitan area and the Baltimore, Washington metropolitan area. So it's a super, super crowded lake. It's real clear. The lake's beautiful. The water's clear. It kind of sits up on this valley up on top of this mountain. And so all the rich people from the Pittsburgh area and the Baltimore, Washington area, they all go to that lake. That's where everybody has a cabin. And there is jet skis and water skis and it's crazy. But the lake's got great water in it. It's got grass in it. It's got all kinds of perch and shiners and crawfish, and like it's got a good forage base in it. So there's a lot of bass in it, but it would just be in the middle of the summer. It would just be crazy busy during the daytime. So we would actually have night tournaments there. And a lot of times, places that have night tournaments, they'll be from like 6 p.m. to midnight or 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. or something like that. We took it to the extreme. We had them from 8 to 8, from 8 o'clock at night till 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, you got the dusk bite, you fished all night long, and you got the daylight. Like you fished for an hour and a half in the daylight or so before it was even over. But anyway, I was a lot younger, a little more spry back then than I was now. So I put a lot of time in up there at night when I was first really getting heavy into tournament fishing and kind of got it dialed in. And we had a couple seasons there before I moved to Florida that if they had 6 or 7 night tournaments throughout the summer, I mean, we won at least half of them and we finished second or third in the rest of them. Like we had it dialed in pretty good. And we used almost exclusively at night. We used a 3/8 ounce spinnerbait with a single number 6 Colorado blade. Now, a lot of people, the difference of this lake was it was a shallow grass kind of deal where I don't know what lake you're talking about in Kentucky, but some of those, if you're talking about Dale Hollow and Percy Priest and some of those deeper lakes, the same bait, but they use a little bit different technique than we used to use back at home on Deep Creek Lake. They do more of a casting it out and dropping it, where when that spinnerbait falls and that big blade's just going boom, 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 and you let it fall to the bottom, then you kind of reel it up a little bit and let it fall to the bottom. A lot of times in those deep water lakes, that's how those guys catch them. Now, what we did back at Deep Creek Lake, it was a shallow, grassy lake. We were literally just throwing it out there and just slow rolling it all the way back to the boat, just keeping it just above the grass. But it was super effective. And I don't know, I'm no biologist. I've just spent a lot of time on the water. I am not a biologist by any means. But if you watch the way a crawfish scurries away, his tail goes like this. And he swims backwards, but his tail is going like this when he's scurrying away. And I can only imagine that when he does that, goes with that tail. Yeah, that would be like the same vibration as that big number 6 Colorado blade. Whoop, 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 whoop. Yeah. And it's just the only thing that I can put together why a single Colorado bladed spinnerbait is such a dominant bait at night. And it
works so good in cold water as well. That's probably a good point right there.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I can think of why. And I do know this now. I haven't fished any of those night tournaments since the Vibe Jig, the chatterbait came out. You know what I mean? But I can only imagine that probably works really good too. Yeah. You know what I mean? At night with that, that blade going back and forth. But yeah, that's I have a lot of experience at night, and it's all with a single Colorado bladed spinnerbait. We used to use black and red in the skirt, and we would use a copper blade. We tried a lot of different combinations, and black and red on the skirt and copper on the blade was, I don't know. We won a bunch of night tournaments. So, let
me ask you something, JT. Did you ever put a different trailer on there? Because we used to do the same thing, had the same black and red or black and blue. We threw a white pork frog chunk on there back in the old Uncle Josh days. Did you ever use a trailer? Did you have a trailer on that spinnerbait?
So we used the only time we would use a trailer is when later in the year, as the grass would get closer to the surface, so we had less distance between the grass and the surface, we'd put an Uncle Josh pork trailer on the back of it, and just so it would ride a little higher without having to reel it faster. You could still reel it slow and just get that whoop, 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 whoop. Yep. But with that pork on the back, it could ride a little bit higher. You know what I mean? So
kind of gave them something to hang on to too. Like when they grabbed it, it felt like a hunk in their mouth. That's
yeah. But when it was more distance between the grass, like early in the year, like mid-June to mid-July, like we would run it with no trailer, and then that way it would get down there closer to the top of the grass. But as the grass would grow up, and like I said, you had less distance, we'd put a trailer on it then. So there was a lot of little things you could do like that. Now, as far as the copper blade being the best and the black and red skirt, I don't know, man. We tried a lot of different stuff, and that's what seemed to work best for us. There was a lot of guys that used to say, I'm going to give away a little secret here that was really, really good for us fishing at night, and might not be a lot of people know about it. A lot of guys used to say you have to use a black blade on bright moonlit nights for whatever their reason was. I don't even remember.
Right.
The deal at night on a bright moonlit night, and this was big time for us. It's fishing the shadows. Any shadows where if there was a bunch of trees and the moon kind of got over here and it was creating, a little shadow line out over the water. But you couldn't just go anywhere and do that. You had to do it in a good area. Like you have to know some areas where some fish are. But then you would go back there when there would be a shadow. Sometimes it was actually kind of easy. Like there was a lot of cabins and cottages on this lake. And when the moon would get to a certain angle and it would create the shadow of the cottage out over, just a little area of the lake, you run right to that shadow and throw that spinnerbait. There had to be grass under there. Once again, it had to be in a good area. But it would almost take every feeding fish from that whole bank. If there was one giant pine tree that casted a shadow out across what is normally just a big flat that you would meander all around. I'm not saying every fish was in that shadow, but every feeding fish was in that shadow. Like it was almost like they went, just like they would go underneath a dock in the daytime. They would go to those shadows. And once we figured that out, I'm not just saying this to, blow smoke up my own butt or anything, but when we figured that out for like 2 years, every full moon tournament, we won it. And that's what we did, is we just fished. Like if the whole bank, the whole bank was good, and at some point throughout the night it was casting a shadow on that whole bank, we'd fish the whole bank. If it was only casting a shadow on 30 yards of it, we would only fish those 30 yards that was in the shadow, and it was amazing. So that's a tip for night fishing.
Dial in.
Yeah, that's definitely a tip for night fishing. So cool deal. So what are you thinking? Like, I know when I was preparing for these championship events and everything, I always kind of had an idea. So you're going to get 2 days of practice or 3?
Yeah, 2. Saturdays.
2. Okay. So are you thinking you're just going to do one day in one pool, one day in the next? Or are you going to try to just like look for largemouth back in the junk one day and smallmouth out on the river one day? Like what's going through your mind?
No, one thing about good up here in the north part of the country is, it's going to get daylight at 5:30 and it's going to get dark at 9 o'clock. So you're going to get two long days, essentially 3 days.
Yeah.
So I'll probably spend one day in the pool we're taking out of and one day in one of the other pools, because you can't really put all your eggs in one basket in one pool. Something may change or whatever. And so I'll probably lock one day and then fish in the pool at 8 one day that we're coming out of. So, but I don't think you can really target like specifically smallmouth or largemouth, because there's a good chance that out there with the smallmouth's going to be some largemouth, and up there with the largemouth's going to be some smallmouth. So I think you just need to find an area that you got some confidence in and just try and roll with it. I do wish in this situation we had 3 days, because there's 3 pools. Yeah. But you just have 2 days, so you just kind of got to roll with it. So
that was going to be my next question too. So, and I know obviously you might change, but I'm just curious. So pool 8 is the pool that is actually like the town of La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Yep.
The next pool up, they refer to that. It's pool 7 or the Onalaska pool.
Right.
It's known for good fishing, obviously. And then the next pool down from pool 8 is, obviously pool 9. I don't remember exactly what they call that one, but yeah, exactly 9, right? 7, 8, 9 goes in order. It's amazing. But no, so on that one, it's kind of an outlier, maybe, like, because I know personally some guys that have had some good events down there, but I don't think one's ever been, and I may be wrong, but I don't think one's ever been a big national event is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a BFL or local.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think any big national events have been won down in 9. Once again, I may be wrong. I'm okay with being
not
wrong.
that I know of.
So are you thinking more doing 8 and 7, or are you going to try to look at 9 too? Because here's my opinion. Before you answer that, here's my opinion. I think sometimes when something gets left alone long enough, that all of a sudden it's the deal. You know what I'm saying? Like if people, I'm not going to 9, it never gets one down there. I'm not going, no. So what are you thinking on that?
Well, I'll tell you what, when I was here my rookie year for the FLW tour in 2017, I spent a lot of time in 9 and did well. And then when we were here last July, for the first year of the Major League Fishing, I actually stayed in 8. I did lock into 9, but I did most of my damage in 8. And so my theory is that for years, say the last 5 years, everybody's went to 7 and 9 and brought back their best 5 bass and put them in 8. And just over time, they just dumped them in 8 and dumped them in 8. So between my ears, I want to say 8's the best pool on the river. Just
makes sense.
You got to play the numbers. So I don't know that it doesn't. It probably gets more pressure in a local event because people are maximizing their time. But on the other hand, it should have more fish than any of the other 2 pools.
Well, so in pool 8, it's kind of interesting because it's very diverse. Like there's like the downtown area that's all what I'll call man-made. It's all dredged out, deeper water. Guys can actually throw deep crankbaits and drop shots and like some deeper techniques in that area. But then when you go to, and that's right near the launch, you guys will actually launch in that area. There's a million boat docks, there's industrial docks, all kinds of stuff, mix of largemouth and smallmouth in there. But then if you go to the south end of pool 8, I mean, you would think you're in the Amazon.
Yeah.
This just canals and like not man-made stuff, like natural, just splitting off and twisting this way and twisting that way. And, obviously you can look at Google Earth and see where you're going. But, I mean, just riding through some of that stuff, and it looks like there could be a damn bass anywhere.
That's the problem.
All that stuff. Yeah, and there are some areas where there is a bass everywhere through all that stuff. But so what's your thought when you go into looking at pool 8? Are you going to give like that more industrialized area up there a little bit of a look? Or are you going straight for the south end and try to figure out that area? Like what's your thought process on that?
Well, I'm probably going to start more towards like the south end and kind of work my way back. Just for the fact that it seems like the current's kind of more defied on that south end. It's hot in the summer. Oxygen's going to play a little bit. Current's going to play. And so that probably is where I'm going to be a little bit more comfortable. Just like what we said, that they're kind of hemmed up with less water. It's going to force them into areas, and I'm going to try and find something like that. If I get up there and try and fish, a big area that's got these dredged areas and docks and all that, seems like there's a lot of places that they can swim away from you. And so I just really don't like to fish that way. I kind of like to go into an area, either find them or not find them, and then either get out or stay, continue on how it's going. So I'm probably more comfortable trying something like that rather than the just deep water, lots of variables. It seems like to me you only got 2 days, so the more variables you can take out of it, the better you are.
Dude, I mean, just my opinion, I completely agree with you because in those dredged areas and all that stuff up there around the town of La Crosse, man, they could suspend if there's not a lot of current up there. They could be a lot of different places where down in that south end, other than the main Mississippi River channel, down in that south end, there's a lot more shallow water. They really can't suspend. If there is any current, you can look at the water and just see where they're going to be. You can see the seams. You can see the eddies. like they're not just going to sit out there in the current and just go like that. You know what I mean? Like they're not going to do that. So,
but the bad thing is, once again, every Tuesday night and Thursday night and Saturday, they bring them up there to the boat ramp and they turn them loose right there.
You're 100%.
Freedom Park, and they swim away. So
you're right. You're right.
It's hard to weigh all that.
No, it is. It is. One of the coolest things that I learned about fishing up there, fished several events up there. It's one of the only places where I've ever caught fish on a frog in current. Like they'll be current waving through the little edge of a little eelgrass point or something, and you can throw your frog up current and let it drift into the eelgrass point as you're working it. Goosh! One blows up on it like that.
And that's another thing. These fish are very aggressive. If you get around, they're going to tell the sign that they're around. It's
they're river fish.
So that's kind of nice, but there's still going to be a ton of dead water on this whole river.
There is. So. There is. That's a fact. So speaking about the frogs, what do you got? You said you got a launch frog tied on, and you got a snag proof tied on. Which exact one? Like what color are you looking at? What have you in your research, or what colors do you think are going to be the deal? And what's your frog setup? Like what do you throw it on as far as rod, reel, and stuff?
Well, I tell you what, I got the same sloppy toed launch frog tied on that you showed earlier to everybody, because it just seems like if you get
you mean the one that I have right here on my desk?
Yeah, everywhere they will bite that one, whether they think it's a perch or a leopard frog or smallmouth. I mean, they just eat that one. So I've got that one tied on, and then I've got a white one in the Bobby's Perfect Frog from Scum Frog, because I think shad are going to play. It's getting a little bit later in the year. Mm-hmm. They're going to be a little bit keyed on bait and whatnot. But I try to throw it on 50-pound braid. I want to be able to get a good long cast, 7/6, just not really a heavy action rod. It's called a heavy, but it's really not. When you push it on the ground, it bends for 3 or 4 eyes, and then it kind of gets some backbone to it. But it's still got enough tip where you can really twitch it. The only thing that I really like is a high-speed reel, because if you're in the junk and you get one, you got to kind of get his head up coming your way.
Yep.
And I definitely try to keep that direction. The high-speed reel is a must, And as long as you can cast 80-pound braid, as far as you feel like you can throw it, might as well throw 80. But it seems like to me 50-pound braid is just a really good, even number to make a good cast and be strong enough to get them out of most situations. And there again, we're not in your situation at Head Lake trying to catch a 10, 12, 14-pounder. We're just trying to, anything that weighs over about 212 is
an important
money fish. Yeah, it's a money fish here. So 212 to 5 pounds, but more or less 212 to 312. So you don't really need a big powerful braid to try and overpower them. So it's just easier to work. It seems like it gives your frog a little more action too. So that 50 is a really good round number.
Yep. No, it's definitely it's a little bit freer. And really lets the frog work a little better. So you were talking about having the sloppy toed color tied on and a white one. So one of the most interesting things that I really like about frog fishing and determining color in which you're going to throw your frog, you'll be able to find, and a lot of times when I know it's going to be a frog bite, like if I was with you fishing up there, like I would obviously have several frogs tied on. But you can really tell which frog color is better, because so many times when it's a frog bite, like and that's just what's going on, and you're catching them on a frog. It's one of the reasons why I got so in tune with that sloppy toad color down here in Florida. And now, like I said, since I've taken it other places, but I was doing a lot of testing for scum frog with those frogs and different colors and different weight systems and all the things that we completely revamped all the scum frog stuff with. Like I was catching fish on a frog. I had them figured out. I had the frog pattern figured out, and I was catching them on dusk. I was catching them on leopard. I was catching them on bullfrog. I was catching them on all the scum frog colors. But that sloppy toad would just be down in there further.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it gave you that confidence that, like, I'm doing the right thing. You know what I mean? Like I'm throwing the right color. And it was time and time and time again. I'd pick up the the black one or whatever. And like I said, this was in Florida, so where you are, or where some of the the people that are listening now, it may not be the sloppy toad color. It may be something else, but you'll notice if you're trying a couple of different colors, like the dust color, for instance. It was good. I caught a lot of fish on that dust color. That's the one that's black and almost has like the little white lightning bolt. I call them lightning bolt looking things going through it. I caught a bunch of them on that. But every one of those, it was a good solid hookup, but it would always be in the corner or right in the roof of the mouth. But when I'd put that down and pick up the sloppy toad, and then I'd catch one, and it would be down in its mouth. Yep. And it happened over and over and over again, to the point where I was like, there's something to this. And it's the thing I love about the sport, is you're constantly learning all the time. And even as long as I've been doing it, and as long as you've been doing it, you're still constantly learning. But just that, it gave me that confidence that I was like, at least when I'm in Florida, or I'm in that Florida looking tannic colored kind of water, like, I'm throwing sloppy toad. Like, that's just, it is, because I have the confidence in it. When you start seeing that, and like I said, I had a kind of a controlled environment where I knew I was going to get bit on that clump of lily pads, and then the next little clump, like isolated clumps, like I knew, throw that frog up there. One's going to bite it. It might be a 2-pounder, it might be a 6-pounder. I'm going to catch one. And it gave me that opportunity to do that. Okay, I'm going to throw a white one at this one. I know I'm going to get a bite, but it would just be hooked on the side or whatever. And obviously it wasn't a shad deal. I'm sure when the shad were spawning on those lily pads, I could have thrown the sloppy toad up there and still caught one, and it would have been hooked in the corner. And I could have thrown the white one up there, and it would have been, it would have been all the way down. But it was just really cool to be able to go through, those progressions and learn all that stuff. And that'll be cool for you up there, the next couple of days when you get to do that, and you kind of dial that in. And I always like that. Like in practice, to me, most events, it was you're just looking for someplace to get some bites. And the fun came when the tournament started and you started to dial it in. You know what I mean? Like, you're like I'd pull in this cove and start it in there, if it was in the springtime, the fish are on the bank or whatever, and get 2 bites in 10 minutes. Well, I didn't fish the rest of the cove. Heck, I know some fish in there. I pull a trolling motor up and go someplace else. Like, if I got 2 bites in 10 minutes, I'm not going. Why would I go around that whole thing? Like, but that's why I loved when the tournament started, because now I could, work on them. Think about
absolutely.
Try to figure out day by day what was the best thing to do. And man, that was good times. You're going to get to do that this week, so it's going to be the way you fish. I think it's going to go right into. To your hands. You'll be able to do you're the kind of angler that's known for being able to do a lot of different things. You know what I mean? Like you're not pigeonholed into, oh, he's a flipper, or oh, he's a cranker, or this or that. When anybody thinks about Jeremy Lawyer, they think about, well, he's had success on jigs, he's had success on buzzbaits, he's had this and that, like just a lot of different stuff. And to me, those are the guys, especially as our sport moves forward and expands. I don't think anymore we can have Denny Browers anymore, if you know what I mean. Like Denny was like the flipping master, but he could be good enough at it that he could win an Angler of the Year championship doing it. I don't think you can do that anymore. I don't think you can be. The technology has it with Lawrence's active target and all his forward-facing sonar and just everything, that how much better rods and reels and line, and like I said, the electronics that are showing us, once you learn how to use them, actually showing us real time what's going on down there. You can't just go flip anymore, or you can't go be David Fritz now and just go crank all the time and win an Angler of the Year championship.
Yeah,
you're not going to do that.
No, one cool thing about the river up here is there's only a handful of techniques that's going to work. the river's only going to allow you to use a handful of things. You
Yep.
know, it's not going to be a spinning rod tournament, you know. Not to say guys won't have one on there. I did put 2 in the top of the truck,
Sure.
but I don't plan
Sure.
on having one out. But,
Right.
you know, really, it's kind of a meat and potatoes kind of place. And the thing about this group of guys that we've got in this, the 50 guys, power fishing is going to be at the top of 90% of those guys' games. So it's definitely going to be a really exciting tournament to watch and see how a lot of guys are probably doing the same things, but it's going to boil down to that area that they found those fish in and if they get them to themselves.
Yep, I think that's going to be a big deal. You know, there's one, I was kind of glancing over here at our comments, and there was one down there from Charles Randy Ray. And Charles said, I'm going to tell you guys a jerkbait is going to play big and pull 8 and 7 before the tourney is over with. I didn't throw, when I fished up there, I didn't throw a jerkbait very much. I'm not saying it won't. I mean, you know, who knows? But I mean, I guess you could jerk some of those current seams, maybe. You know, I don't know. And
I did bring them. They're in the truck, you know, and they'll be in the boat for game day. But it was more of a schooling type situation, is what I was thinking about if I came across something like that, just in a current seam or an eddy situation.
Sure.
But you know, a lot of these guys up here that are locals, and Charles may be one of them. There's no doubt that they figured out ways to catch them that we haven't. No different if they came to, you know, down there around your area, or they came to Table Rock with my area. So no doubt the guys that are the locals on a given fishery are definitely got things figured out a lot of times more. And sometimes, you know, we're called pros, but you know, sometimes we don't. Yeah,
no, I hear you.
Any, you know, we watched it just go right on by, and they had it figured out, you know. But when you get to fish a place every single day, 12 months a year at your will, you figure out these little things. But when we roll into town, haven't been here, you know, since July of last year, got 2 days to practice. You really don't have time to experiment. You got to get on your horse, go find some fish, or you're going to get your teeth kicked in. So sometimes we go right by some of the most subtle ways to win, and we just don't have a chance to experiment.
Yeah, and just like you brought up, with 2 days of practice, and then you get yourself into you kind of roll with what you found. Of course, you're always trying to expand, but at the same time, you're limited to 8 hours. You don't necessarily have that, you know, that kind of time to be able, like if you go out and catch a decent limit, like for example, up here, you know, like you were saying, 15, 16 pounds, you know, you're in good shape.
Yeah.
Then you do have the ability to go do that stuff. But if you're sitting on 11 pounds or something, you can't. It's hard to go look. I mean, because you're like, I know there's some fish here. I at least, you know, got to try to make some money, because this is how you make your living. Like, so.
Yeah. And you know, one more thing that we haven't even talked about is in the BFL up here a 3 weeks ago, I watched the weigh in and this and that. And I saw that about 35 guys didn't even weigh in. And then I saw some posts on Facebook to where they got locked out, and the barge traffic locked them out. And so they got to throw them in, and everybody got zeros. So, you know, you go down to 8 to 9, or you go up to 7, and you catch a good bag, but you don't get back through the lock, and it's all for naught. And so barge traffic's probably going to play some this week. It always has every time I've been there. It either cuts your day short, or you can't, like last year in July, I ran to the lock. I was boat 3 or 4 and got there, and there was a barge, and the lockmaster said, it's going to be an hour, boys. So we had to go running around and try and catch some, and then it ended up, he got there, but then another barge came by. It's 3 hours before we got through, and I did elect to lock still because I was having a terrible morning and ate, and caught a limit in like 40 minutes and turned around and locked right back up, you know, and got back out of there. But locking is definitely something it's not safe. If we was in a normal event where your points are on the line and maybe your whole season's on the line, if you lock, it definitely weigh a little heavier on my mind, you know. But, you know, it seems like if you find a group of fish in 7 or 9 and you think you have a chance to win, we're here at the championship, you got to lock regardless. But locking can definitely play big when you look at the results.
Well, you know, one of the things too, I was going back to thinking about what Charles said about that jerkbait. with the influx and you know, like as you were talking, I was thinking about that jerkbait deal and all that. Like with the influx of the water that's coming in, you know, you said they got 7 or 8 inches of rain up north. With the influx of that coming in, it's got to have the river stirred up a little bit. I would think. I don't know. I'm not there. I'm 1,000 miles away.
Well, when I drove over it, it definitely did.
Yeah. It would. I mean, it would have to be. I'm sure before that came in, if the river was low, it was probably clear. Or for the Mississippi River,
right.
It was clear. Yep. You know, which by saying that, I'll tell you this: we were talking about. I don't know. I forget what they call it. Black Lake or Black Rivers, back in those backwaters where the launch is and all that, and what I'm going to call the town of La Crosse. That water back in there is pretty clear most of the time. It's pretty clear. But when you're out on the main channel and then you get south of that area, down there we were talking about, looks like the Amazon down in there.
Right.
You know, that water typically down in there, I'm not going to tell you it's typically Mississippi River mud, you know, like people say, but it's, you know, it's got a little color to it.
It does.
So it'll be interesting to see, and how quickly all that extra vegetation that's down there, because the water was low, how quickly that cleans it all up. So that it's going to be a really cool event. Want to make sure everybody comes and cheers you on, because obviously we want our man Jeremy Warrior. We want him to be holding that title belt up at the end of the week next week.
Absolutely.
But like I said, everybody come MajorLeagueFishing.com, MLF now. Just click on the live thing. All 6 days of the event. The event starts Tuesday. It starts Tuesday. It'll run Tuesday through Sunday. So like I said, everybody, you know, check in on MajorLeagueFishing.com. Watch us live. We'll be on pretty much the whole day. Like we're going to be on the whole day. And then we'll take just a short break, and then, you know, we'll have the weigh-in on. So we'll check it out. This is going to be an interesting time, because in this event, this is the first time that we're going to have the preliminary rounds, you know, the opening rounds, and then a knockout round and a championship round with the 5-fish format still. We use that a lot in Major League Fishing, but of course we use that every fish over 2 pounds counts. So now we're going to go every fish over 12 inches counts. So we're basically going back to the 1 pound minimum, but it's going to be a 5-fish deal. So it's going to be really interesting to see. So the way it looks, the guys are going to be split up into groups. The winner of the preliminary rounds are immediately going to go into the championship round. 2nd through 10th of the preliminary rounds are going to go to a knockout round, which the knockout round will be day 5. And then we'll take the rest of the top 10 out of the knockout round. And then that'll give us the final 10 on Sunday. It'll be championship Sunday. And maybe we will see Jeremy Lawyer holding up that title. So
I hope so.
We all hope so. Well, everybody, we really appreciate it. I'm sorry we didn't get to all the comments tonight, but we really appreciate everybody stopping by. American Bait Works Live. Obviously, we had one of our very favorite guests, Jeremy Lawyer. Buddy, we're going to wish you, from all of us at American Bait Works, we're going to wish you just all the luck we can. We'll be rooting. We'll be cheering you on. And just want to say, everybody, thanks for watching this week's American Bait Works Live.
Thank you, guys. See you next time.